serious. What is the story of death in your school? A student hung himself on a tree by the school, in trance during third period. Body was removed by the time classes ended. A few days after, I happened to overhear people from his class talking about how annoying he was to everyone, and cringy stuff he had done. This is awfully sad, and many people have this fear that, after I die, people will only be relieved. I hope the student rests in peace. I went to a school where the academic pressure was fucking intense. 2 kids killed themselves and cited the pressure as their reasons for doing it. Teachers gave us all lectures on not putting too much pressure on ourselves. Before assigning the usual crazy amount of homework, please give an example of how much homework they gave. I probably had a good 6 hours of homework a night. College is much easier. It's usually not even that any individual teacher assigns too much homework. It's just that they assign a reasonable amount of homework and ignore that 6 other teachers are doing the same thing. 2 deaths. One was a kid I hung out with at school sometimes, not close. He committed suicide, and nobody cared at all. I don't think anyone even knew besides myself, and his family obviously. Teachers said nothing at all. The other death was a very popular student who drunk drove speeding down a rural road, flipped the car and hit a tree. Dead. He had just started working at my job as well in a pizza shop for about a week. So, I knew him, but obviously not well. The entire school was in mourning. It was the total opposite of my school acquaintance. Kids crying in the hallways, an assembly to announce the funeral, teachers would let kids out of class early, etc. Mostly kids just faking it for attention. I only felt bad for his actual friends, some of which I do call friends myself. His mom went on a crusade to try and get teens banned from driving cars. It wasn't a popular idea. Edit. There was another. I had only thought of students. My school days are a long time ago. A science teacher I had lost his child to cancer. He fell into depression. He stopped teaching his regular classes, and I guess the school put him on light duty of sorts. He just ran the computer labs and assisted other teachers. He looked completely lost in a brain fog for a few months, very slow to respond. Then he committed suicide. Hit by a student in a car in the car park. Was a dark time for the school as it wasn't the driver's fault as the kid ran out in front and the driver was only doing 5 miles per hour, but he hit the kid who then hit his temple on a curb. There was a witch hunt for the driver in school until they released the video footage from one of the security cameras that basically absolved him. Imagine if there were no cameras. That would have been 2 lives ruined. Similar thing happened at my high school the year after I graduated. Kid was riding on the outside of his buddy's car, holding into the open passenger side window. He lost his grip and hit his head, and ended up dying before the ambulances arrived. The family didn't want to press charges or anything on the driver, I assume, since they knew they were both just being dumb teens in the moment. Oh, there were several. I guess most gruesome was the one where one of the teachers got stabbed multiple times by her ex-husband in front of the school gates. Multiple children ages 7 to 10 were watching. She collapsed, bled out and died on her way to the hospital. It took them 2 weeks to remove the blood stain from school grounds. Dude got 2 decades in jail. Apparently she kicked him to the curb because he wasn't all there. They left 2 beautiful children. I hope he rots in hell. He only got 20 fucking years, what the fuck. Car accident killing 4 kids from my school. They were speeding and crashed into someone else. Their car flew down a bank and ended up decapitating one kid at the back. Wasn't wearing his seatbelt. A second car was following them with their friends. They stopped and tried to help, but there was nothing to do. One kid was a teacher's kid. The entire school took a day off to go to their funerals. A kid in my class died in a quad bike accident. He used to race and decided at the end of the race to take all his protective gear and do dumb shit before loading his quad on his trailer. Quad flipped on him, crushed his chest, and died on the way to the hospital. Back in high school, a student died unexpectedly in his sleep. Half a year later, the same thing happened to a teacher, and one of my former college classmates died in a car accident 2 years ago. Points due to what did he die in his sleep? Just speculation, but I personally know someone who died of sudden adult death. The adult version of SID. It essentially meant his heart stopped, and he stopped breathing. No cause found other than that. It's surprisingly common and extremely hard for the family and friends to come to terms with. There were a few student deaths when I was in high school, but the teacher death that happened hurt the most. The summer before my senior year of high school, the band teacher died from an unexpected heart attack. It was a really hard time. Most of us knew him since 4th grade or earlier, since my school district was tiny. He taught both elementary school band and high school band, and he was the one who gave the woodwind and percussion lessons. We got a new band teacher at the start of the year, very young, though he was married with a kid. He seemed great and supportive, and he pushed us to play our old band teacher's favorite song better than we ever had before. Then halfway through the year, he disappeared. Turned out, he was sleeping with a junior. We had to start all over again. When I was 16, one of the kids 2 grades younger than me got raped and subsequently murdered by a child molester one weekend. It was a big school, so I can't say I ever personally knew anything about her, but it shocked pretty much everyone that it happened. This happened at my school too. This happened when my mom was in school. A middle school girl told the gym teacher she couldn't run because she had a heart condition. The gym teacher made her run anyway, and she died right there on the track. Man, that gym teacher should be ashamed of themselves. Gym teachers seem to do things like deny medical needs, but the fact that they'd go so far as to actually kill the kid is so sad. I mean, they're supposed to be improving your physical health. They better have at the very least been fired. Girl sat next to me and was my partner for French class. The next year, she was dating someone from another local school district who apparently snapped after a breakup, went to her house with a shotgun, and killed her on her doorstep. He later got into a standoff with the police at his own house and shot himself in his room. The funeral was just awful. She had a huge support group of friends and almost the entire high school showed up to pay their respects. It's incredibly sobering being at the funeral of someone younger than you. She was a very sweet girl, incredibly quiet, but never would have hurt anyone or anything. When I was in 7th grade, one of the Latin teachers in our middle school committed suicide. Nobody knew how to tell us that at the time, so they just said she passed away. Nothing got done in any of our classes that day, and it was right before Thanksgiving break. They didn't confirm it was suicide until a few weeks later, but I was told from my drum teacher, who worked with the school, that they all knew. Apparently it just came out of nowhere. Nobody knew what she had been dealing with, or was planning, or even suspected anything, likely because she was one of the most liked teachers at the time. Seeing 7th graders consoling teachers was a wild sight, cause they lost a friend and co-worker too. So many of these stories are suicide. Statistically, it makes sense, but it's still confronting. A quiet, awkward kid who had special needs, and bullied for it, was riding his bike home one evening on some trails, and carrying a knife. He wrecked and the knife went into his chest. I didn't know him too well, but we had mutual friends. Afterwards, all the crying and sadness expressed by the kids, who had made fun of him, was gross. Some of them were probably disgusted with themselves, as they should be. A girl in my school accidentally shot herself in the head while she was joking around with a gun. She thought she was holding an unloaded one. She died on the spot before the ambulance could get to her. Her sister was in the room with her, and she is getting treated for PTSD. I remember seeing a Facebook live video on the news. I don't have Facebook, of a kid who was probably about 8 playing with his dad's shotguns with his friends and showing them. He loaded it and jokingly pointed at a girl, and then for whatever reason it went off and took her head off. You thankfully don't see any of this. The details were reported, but I will never forget the sounds. They were all joking around and laughing, then a sudden bang and hysterical screams and crying. Really disturbing. Happened in Argentina, but genuinely it is only the sound you hear as the camera is not in the direction of where it happened. Thank goodness. It's really sad how avoidable these kinds of accidents could be by following proper gun safety. May she rest in peace. In elementary school, about 20 years ago, jawbreakers were an up and coming candy, kind of frowned upon by everyone as they were a huge choking hazard. The main ones were about 3 centimeters. So most kids would buy and eat these in secrecy. The gas station 50 meters from my school sold them, basically to anyone. So this one day, a girl from my class went to the bathroom too, which we would later find out, secretly eat one of those jawbreakers. Instead she started to choke on it, causing her to fall down and smash her head on the toilet seat. She passed right there on the spot. Another girl from my class found her a few minutes after that when she didn't come back. We were about 7 or 8 at the time, so the realization of what actually had happened was not really there, but we knew something really bad had just happened. It was all over the news and was a hot topic at the school for many years after. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.